So you were just automatically a great student.
It's like a blessing and a curse. Because at the same time, sure, you could like be born with with smarts, right? But I believe me and you have different intellects. What I mean by that is that a lot of people dim it down to the words street smarts and book smarts, right? I mean, I don't really know a lot of your backstory. I know I knew you young. In fact, I recall the first memory I had with you. Really? I believe I'm fighting with you.
Really?
And I think I hit you and we started hitting each other. Do you remember that?
That's cool.
See? Yeah, see?
But that wasn't when we first met.
But that's my first memory. Because I met you super young.
Yeah.
And so I met you, you're the youngest of your family, and so am I. And so what does that do? It puts us in a for me at least, and I'm pretty sure I've seen you from a distance, and I believe you to be equally, if not more hungry than me to succeed. And I see a bunch of people congratulating you, and that's good, but at the same time it's double-edged sword, because there's a false dopamine of achieving something that you want more.
Of course.
What do you think is social media's place in the world, and is it too much?
Oh man. That's a good question. The way I see social media, bro, is really just like a platform, I mean, you could do whatever you want with social media. You can monetize social media. You could be an influencer. You could use it for your business. The only downside I see with social media is that there's a lot of, almost like it gives you a false sense of reality. There's people out there. It's because when you look at social media, you have to kind of keep in mind where it's like a lot of the times that's people's best version of themselves, you know what I mean? And if you get caught up in that and thinking that everything is always good, you will almost get in this position where you're like really messing with your own mental, you know what I mean? Because you see other people succeed and other people do all these good things and other people's businesses doing really well, but you don't see any of the downside because that's not what people post on social media, you know what I mean?
Not real.
Exactly. So social media, I think, is a phenomenal platform. I think, especially in this generation, I mean, social media is huge, right? We need social media. I mean, you need social media to get known. You don't necessarily need social media for business, but if you know how to use social media and leverage social media the right way, I mean, the reach that you can get, with an organic post is ridiculous. The quality of people that you get might not be as good, but I mean, social media is everything if you really think about it. Paid advertisement on social media too. For a business standpoint, if you're running ads, you're running it on Facebook, on Google. I don't know if you consider Google social media, but Instagram, Facebook, that kind of stuff, even like Snapchat and these other apps. But I mean, it's a little bit hard to kind of put I guess you could say label social media some type of way, you know what I mean? Because there's always positive and negative. But in general, I mean, if you're not, if you don't get caught up in the falseness and like the fake of social media, and you use it almost in a positive way, where you leverage your business, or you network with people and you try to create these connections or that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a great tool. You know what I mean?
From you and I, it's a good thing.
Right.
But then we strip it away from businessmen, and we look at what it's doing to the youth.
Right.
Now, the youth is extremely more impressionable than you and I.
100%.
So then we look at the increase of suicide rate, and I think we could attribute that to social media. Now, is it Zuckerberg's fault? Maybe, perhaps, a little bit. But I mean, I think he's just an individual trying to succeed in his business. However, it's a very messed up business because, like what you said, it's a great tool, but it's not real. So let's not treat it as such, right? Because we're giving this tremendous platform to people under the age of 16, 12, you know? And that's when, you know, personality starts to get cultivated. Now, I'm hearing that education is in a crisis. Not only because of social media, but also AI. And, you know, a great friend of ours, Alex, just graduated from UCF, correct?
Right.
I think college, and you can speak to this, college has been greatly bastardized. For example, I didn't try. Well, I'm a special case because, you know, I'm the special one, you know, Jose Mourinho. But, you know, I didn't try to get into college, I got into it. That's actually the problem because college is supposed to be right here. Right. And now it's like,
right.
Just come in. So like, a lot of people are saying you don't need to go to college. Guess what? You don't. You just need to know how to do business.
Exactly.
The thing is, education is power. And you know it. You asked me, I remember one day you asked me, do you read? And at the time I didn't. But I think you asked me that question because you see how I interact with people.
Right.
And it's very, you know, intentional. You know, I have a dream in my mind. I'm not living in this $1 million house that I'm living in, right? This is not my house, right? But I'm living in it. And I just want to be like in a cube, like with my laptop, like just working, making money. Because like the more I was invited. Kyle invited me to shoot this morning.
The range.
The range. And I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna go do? Shoot. Every time I go and try to have fun, I think, what am I doing? When I could be working.
Right.
When I could be learning. When I could be reading.
Right.
Because bro, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The only way you waste life is by not learning. Period. I'm pretty sure you like to smoke cigar, huh? I'm pretty well dressed and you're going. You use that money for something else.
Right. I do want to touch on the social media thing really quick.
But this was
yeah. When you mentioned social media being almost like a I guess you could say something negative towards the youth. I think it affects both youth and an older generation too. And the reason why is because social media, right? These apps are designed to keep you on. You know what I mean? And
that's fine.
It's horrible because, you know, you want to talk about a waste of life. There was a statistic, I think it was like, the average American spends throughout their lifetime, I think it's like 8 years of their lifetime on social media, which is crazy. You know what I mean? Almost a decade. And social media, it's if you can't have the focus to put the phone down or to mute your notifications or something, it could really, you can't get anything accomplished. You know what I mean? And the way I see it is how you were talking about how, you know, what am I doing these fun things when I should be working? I'm the same way. I think the same way. I completely agree with you. You know?
No, while you're in it, I'm like, while I'm in these moments, I'm like, I feel so ridiculous.
I see what you're saying.
Because there's so much things to be.
Of course, there's so much to be done. And, you know, I face the same problem every single day. You know, I think about that stuff too. It's like, you know, I could be focused right now doing the work that I have to do, you know, when I'm doing something else that I shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? But I think, number one, we're humans. I guess you say the willpower is possible, but it's almost impossible to be perfect. You know what I mean? The only person that was perfect was Jesus Christ. And none of us are Jesus. You know what I mean? We're humans.
Speak for yourself. I'm just kidding.
But as humans, we're gonna be imperfect. You know what I mean?
So you're saying to embrace the imperfection?
Not embrace the imperfections, but just understand that it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? If you can avoid it, obviously you try your best to avoid it. You're not perfect, so you're not gonna be able to avoid it all the time. You know what I mean? But it's more of when you are working, how focused are you during those work hours? If you look at the production in which, you know, if I spend 2 hours working, let's say I'm working on scripting a YouTube video, if I'm focused 2 hours, headphones in, notifications off, you know, whatever, staring at the computer screen, if I'm locked in for 2 hours, you know, I'm gonna get way more production out of that time, that if I were to go ahead and work for 6 hours, but, you know, I'm constantly picking up the phone, I'm, you know, getting up, I'm getting food, I'm sitting back down, you know, I'm calling somebody, you know what I mean? I'm sure I'll get it done too. But it's like, why do you waste, you know, those 4 hours being unproductive when you can just focus for 2 hours and get the same amount of output? I feel like if you do something that will positively impact your the performance in which you get back from the work that you do, I think that is positive. So if I work for an hour straight and I get up and I go take a 5-minute walk, you know, because I'm drained or whatever, I get my natural sunlight and that kind of stuff. If I sit back down and I feel powered up again, that walk is positive. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Because it just put me back in that mode to get after it again. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Well, that's different, right? Because walks, I don't know when's the last time you paid a monthly subscription to take a walk, but I'm pretty sure they're free, right?
Right.
So that's when we got into like going to a shooting range or buying an expensive liquor or smoking. You did something fantastic. You bought land. Is that under your name?
Yeah, of course.
At 19, like that's. I'm not gonna give you a false sense of dopamine rush here, but that's great.
Thank you.
But at the end of the day, so all this, do you keep track of all your expenditure or no?
Yes and no. I don't really spend a lot. Honestly, I don't really spend a lot. Just because my priorities are different. You know what I mean? Like you were talking about the clothes and that kind of stuff. I don't really buy clothes.
So you just have it.
It's not that I have it. This, I bought recently.
Okay.
But apart from that,
To celebrate.
As humans, we can't work 24/7. We just can't.
But there's certain things you can do to make the hours that you did work be more.
Right. What do you mean by that?
Okay. For example, instead of having a wedding, use that money to put a down payment.
Right.
So something like that, or even smaller, like perhaps instead of buying a 50-year McAllen, put that money towards, an investment program. You know what I'm saying? So that's working even if you stop working.
Right.
So that's what I mean when I have this dream of living in like a small little thing with little to minimize everything I spend and maximize everything I earn.
Right.
Because that's what you did with this lot. You put that money somewhere, and you and I are on the same wavelength because you did that. You actually did it. You're not speaking it.
Right.
So you actually put your money to use.
Right.
And then the question that I'm asking is like, why, with the same mindset, why are you using that money in other things, knowing that it could go to more things?
What do you mean by more things as in
Investment.
Investments? Oh, so you're saying
Like clothes, cigars, liquor.
right? Why? Okay, I see what you're saying. I mean, it comes down to again,
The same thing, human spirit.
It's not human. It's more just your priorities. You know what I mean? There was a really good book called "The Psychology of Money." I don't know if you've read it or not. It speaks on we're all different, right? We all do different things with our money. You know what I mean? For example, I like cars, right? When I get to the point where I have, you know, my money that I can spend on cars, I personally enjoy cars. You know what I mean? I like seeing cars, I like driving cars. So I would like to buy and purchase a car. You know, whether that's whatever kind of car, whether it's a Lambo, McLaren, Ferrari, whatever. You know, yes, I can take that money and go invest it. You know what I mean? Of course, I can live super, you know, frugally. You know what I mean? If I don't even know if that's right.
Yeah.
And you know, not spend money on clothes. You know, buy food from Costco in bulk. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. But then it just comes down to, is that the kind of life you want to live, and is that the kind of thing you want throughout your life?
The thing is, okay, do you see your muscles grow as you pump iron?
No.
Okay. So as you invest, the money grows and your potential for a better life grows, right? But if you enjoy that better life, as you are cultivating it, in the future it's going to be diminished, right? And your accolades along with it, right? So it's either pain now for a little bit, and then pain, very little pain in the future, or enjoy now and enjoy forever, but little. You're far ahead of the game in this aspect, in the age aspect, because what I was doing at 19 was, first of all, 100 pounds heavier, okay?
Right.
Coming from a second heart procedure, okay? And then talking to people that I should not have been talking to.
Right.
Who were in a different class than me. I got messed up with them. And, you know, they took advantage of me. They took opportunity from me, right? But I let them, right? And that caused me a great deal of pain, right? I went through the majority of my life being a people pleaser, offering really my personality to other people as a product. Are we in this for friends? Or are we in this for success and family?
Right.
Now, I've really cut the people in my circle down to the people that I don't do business with. Now imagine that, right? So it's like, that circle right now is extremely small. It wasn't back then, right? So when I was 19, I was about to get married. I went to Cancun, I got married, okay? I worked, my purpose was her. I lived for her. Like, I'm right now married to my business, and that's my purpose for business. I nurture it. That was what I was for her. Like, I used the business to nurture her because I was allowing myself to be blurred by the vision of letting someone else define my purpose. Now, this is what I mean by this. I wanted to set this up because imagine that. Imagine you inviting someone to another country, Mexico, and getting married, right? And then you go to Colombia, you live there for a year. And one day she goes to visit her sister in Madrid and she calls me and says, "Hey Nico, I'm not coming back." And then that level of pain, of loss, really shakes you. You know, really unstables you. And then it wasn't a matter of choice at that point. It was a matter of will to survive. And there was no cognitive decision making there. I was not conscious in the decision of changing my life's purpose. Let me put it to you like this. I had 2 heart procedures done. I had a cosmetic surgery done to cut off the loose skin. I did all that with anesthesia. Now this divorce, the separation from this woman, was as painful as going through one of those procedures without anesthesia.
Of course.
So I had a tremendous amount of pain. And I think, you know me, you knew me before, and you saw this like Disney loving obese kid that loved everything, right?
Right.
That sole focus in life was to enjoy it. And now it's the same thing, but approached a little differently.
Right.
Now it's not, let's focus on how much leisure time we have. Let's focus on building ourselves to be the best human that we can be. Now, that's what I'm trying to ask you. Because, yeah, me and you are probably racing, me and you, right? To the same goal. And the fun thing, the interesting part is that you're 5 years ahead of me, right? But like, I've had that experience of getting like destroyed. Now I don't know what pain, what place is pain in your life? Like, I'm to a point where it's like, bring it on. Like, what else can you throw at me?
See what you're saying.
Because I've been thrown a lot, right? But I've come back. Now, what I mean by that, it's like, you're 5 years ahead of me, but do you have all that experience and all? Like, how do you put up youth against experience? Is what I'm trying to say.
I see what you're saying. So the main thing is, right, motivation comes from a lack of deprivation, right? So if you feel as if you are broke, right, and you are really broke, I'm not saying I'm broke, but it's an example. If you're saying, or I was broke, it's an example, right? If you're saying you're really broke and you feel like you're really broke, that's gonna motivate you to go and get money, right? You have to go through some sort of experience, whether it's, you know, let's say you go to a gas station, you try to buy something, can't buy anything, people start laughing at you, you know what I mean? The thing is with youth is that it's almost as if we almost have no choice in the path that we take in life. You know what I mean? You get born, you get raised by your parents, and honestly, depending on kind of your parents and how they raised you, determines a little bit on kind of the path you take in the future, right? Just because if you were born in, more of an entrepreneurial kind of family, kind of background, they might teach you something different than a family who was, raised to go work corporate and work up that ladder. But I think, when you're young, 90% of the time, everyone's life is the same. You go to school, you finish school, you go to college, you get a job, right? The thing is with me, I grew up in a great area, very nice area. The only problem is we never had, we've had issues with money. You know what I mean? My family had issues with money. We didn't have all the money in the world. My dad was very fortunate to have a very successful business in Brazil. He used all that money to move us here. And, like business, things hit the fan, and if you can't figure it out, then your income is basically diminished, you know what I mean? But throughout that time, there definitely was pain in my life because I see other people doing things that I want to do. I see other people living experiences that I want to live. Other people having things that I want to have, and seeing that I can't get those things because we don't have the resources to get those things. That brought me pain. You know what I mean? I never wanted to feel that way. If I want something, I want to get it. You know what I mean? And I don't want there to be something that blocks me from getting what it is that I want to get. You know what I mean? you have to be very careful with that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that can be very bad. You know what I mean? Money can almost be a master. You get what I'm saying? But that's the main, I guess you could say, the main turning point in my life where I realized, okay, I need to figure out how to get money. You know what I mean? I need to figure out how to not be in this position. You get what I mean? I want to have everything, and I want to be free. You know, I want to be abundant, and I want to be able to afford whatever I can afford at any point in my life, at any time. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I mean, you know, when I was in that situation, I started to try to think of ideas and, you know, what's going to get me there the fastest. You know what I mean? Even at a young age, I mean, you say I'm young, right? And I am very young. But in my head, I almost feel as if I'm behind. You know what I mean? Because I see people that are already there. And I said, why is that not me?
Who?
Everybody. You know what I mean? Any sort of successful person. If you look at successful people with businesses, right? I mean, you look at these millionaires, multi-millionaires, and obviously there's people on social media too, right? Where I see, I'm like, okay, they're very successful, for what I see at least. They're successful. Why is that not me? In my head, I'm competing with those people. Yes, I'm way ahead, age-wise, but, you know, am I ahead knowledge-wise? You know what I mean? And you spoke about knowledge earlier. Knowledge is everything. You know what I mean? Knowledge is, I mean, if the only thing that separates you and the person that you want to be is the knowledge. Let's say you take, you know, statistically the best realtor in the state of Florida, and you put him into your business. The things that he's going to do differently that you don't know you have to do differently is what's going to separate you two. You know what I mean? That is, I think, is key to everything, knowledge. So how do you get knowledge? You know what I mean? It comes down to how do you get knowledge. It's like problem solving in business. You know what I mean? You have a bottleneck in your business. You figure out what is that problem, you know, why is that a problem, and how do I fix that problem, and how do I prevent having that problem in the future, you know what I mean? And, you know, knowledge you get from other people, talking to other people, books, courses.
You know, today's world is just like, the more I focus on books and numbers, the more let's put it like this. I think the role of learning and reading has been severely diminished in today's society.
100%.
I'm just going to say that, right? Because a lot of people are focused on things that they should not be focused on, right?
I completely agree.
And hang around people that have a false sense of identity.
I completely agree, but then it comes down to who are us to say that?
The numbers.
Yes, but who are us to tell them how to live their lives? You know what I mean? We just have to look into our own lives and say, are we doing what's best for what I think is best? You know what I mean?
But then how can you learn from someone else?
When you learn from someone else, I only take advice and I only listen to people who are in a position that I want to be in.